Hi out there, it's me, Katie Liz again. I have a lot to talk about today, and I don't know how to get started. I'll start by introducing the next YouTuber that I've been learning a lot from. The channel is called Therapy in a Nutshell, and it is a therapist giving you coping techniques for anxiety. And a little background information, the reason why I ended up on that site is I do have a history of anxiety problems. They all kind of started from when I was in nursing school and have slowly accelerated to the point where last January I ended up going on Zoloft because I was having several panic attacks a day. Right now I'm in the process of weaning back off of it. I was originally planning on staying on it for a year, and some of the side effects have just been something that I really don't want to deal with anymore. It was wonderful at first, and it really helped me get through a very difficult time of my life. But now I think it's possibly doing more harm than good, so I'm going to try to go off it and see how it goes. And in that process, I'm trying to learn some coping mechanisms for my anxiety that are a little more healthy. I think my theory is that I don't have an anxiety disorder per se, but that I have just created a habit of dealing with stressful situations in a bad way, and I was never taught healthy coping mechanisms. And the nice thing about this YouTube channel, Therapy in a Nutshell, is it's very educational about the sympathetic versus the sympathetic versus parasympathetic response in your body. And as I've kind of been learning about habits and how the brain works and the sympathetic response, I realized that I think I've just been wiring my brain to go to that sympathetic response instead of practicing parasympathetic response. And now that I have these tools that I can practice and put into habit, I feel like I can retrain my body to be able to pull up that parasympathetic response when I want to. And I'll link below my favorite video of hers, which is how to strengthen, other ways to strengthen your parasympathetic response. She has a lot of them, but this one happens to be my favorite. And one of the things that seems to have helped me the most is just paying attention to my breathing. It's such a simple thing. It seems like it wouldn't matter that much, but I had no idea how often during the day I was actually holding my breath or breathing really shallow, and how it was contributing to my anxiety and stopping me from being able to calm down. And so even just being more mindful of how I'm breathing throughout the day has made a really big difference. She had a couple other really interesting things to talk about your parasympathetic response that really resonated with me. One was, she said, monotask throughout the day. Do one slow, easy thing throughout the day. And I know that I talked in previous videos about multitasking and how it really stressed me out. And so now, watching her video, I learned why. And so that's something I'm trying to incorporate into my day a little bit more. Currently, I have been working on the habit of coming up to my room at 9 o'clock every night and spending a half an hour before bed with phone off, with a book, or in prayer, or just quietly with my own thoughts. And I have been pretty good at keeping up with that habit. That's one I've succeeded at pretty well. And one thing I thought of this morning is when I was doing my makeup, which is something I really like to do. I just find it fun. It's a nice creative outlet for me to do every single day. It is a slow task that has me grounded in the moment and helps me to relax and start my day in a nice way. Another thing that she mentioned was social connection, and this is something I'm going to try to do more of. This is part of the reason why I'm going off of the Zoloft. It did get rid of completely my panic attacks, but the reason that I'm going off of it is because I have noticed that my connection with other people has suffered, especially with my family and my husband. I have felt very withdrawn and kind of like I just want my space. You know, I just kind of, and I don't want to be that way. And she says social connection every day really helps foster that parasympathetic response. And I think I'll get better at getting back into that as I reduce my Zoloft dosage or possibly go off of it altogether. And another thing that she talked about was stretching. I was given, when I went to physical therapy for my neck, I was given some exercises to do for the slip discs in my neck, and I need to do that every day, and that's one of the things that I have failed at, is incorporating that into my everyday. I'm actually supposed to do it twice a day, but I think if I could succeed in doing it once a day, it would be better than nothing. And I thought maybe I could try to get stretching into that somewhere too, but I haven't figured out where during my day I'm going to do that. I did start the block scheduling just a teeny tiny bit. I added reminders on my phone, Google Calendar, to remind me when I'm supposed to do my Bible studies during the day, in the morning and the evening, and when I commute and when I go for my walk. And it has really, really helped to boost me into doing especially the evening quiet time and the walk. There's been a few times that I've been sitting on the couch and I'm like zoning out, I don't know what you want to call it, but getting into that sit and do nothing mode, and my phone goes, time for a walk, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, I need to go for a walk. So that's been really great. A really wonderful tool. I wish that I'd used, did I say Google Maps earlier? Google Calendar. I wish that I'd started using Google Calendar a long time ago. And so now I'm going to find a spot on my calendar to add the stretching, since the other ones seem to be going pretty well. Let's see. The last thing that she talks about in therapy in a nutshell is the reason behind doing these things, these steps to try to force your body into a parasympathetic response and out of the sympathetic fight or flight response. She said you have to be careful that you're not doing these things just to trick your body into calming down. What you want to use these things for, calm your body so that you can problem solve, so that you can dig into why you started having the anxiety in the first place and try to solve those issues, not avoid them. And I thought that was a really good point to make. One more thing that I've been studying that has to do with anxiety is the effect of social media. I use social media. My family uses social media. Who doesn't use social media these days? Just about all of us. And I wanted to make sure that that wasn't something that was affecting me. I came to the conclusion that it was, but not for the reasons that seem to be listed for the majority of people as far as the studies they've done so far. It seems like from what I've read, if you use social media to cure boredom, it doesn't typically seem to contribute to your anxiety. And that is what I typically use social media for. I'm not out there trying to get likes and get shares and feel down or depressed because people don't like or share my content. I do, however, feel as though it contributes to my anxiety because it contributes to my inactivity level, and being inactive contributes to how your mental health is. And other than the other thing, and I haven't looked into this scientifically yet, but Pinterest is something that I go to a lot to waste time. and you're doing a lot of scrolling and looking, and your eyes move. And I feel like that eye movement with the bright screen in your face, and I don't have any proof of this, but I feel like somehow that does contribute to the anxiety. But I decided to start a new Instagram page, and I'll link it below if you want to follow that. And this is for other people, not for myself. It's called The Mundane Reel, because something that I read that does contribute to anxiety for other people is, they call it the highlight reel, where you go on social media and people post pictures of the best parts of their day, their vacations, their delicious food when they go out to eat, their fun with friends, and you start to feel like your life dull in comparison to theirs, and you get depressed. But I wanted to try to combat that. And so I started the Mundane Reel, and I started throughout the day kind of taking pictures of things that are not so great, but are a necessary part of my day. And maybe if more of us did that and stopped only posting the highlights and really shared the reality of our lives with each other, it might make a difference. So anyway, it's just a little fun thing that I've decided to do on the side. If you want to join me in that, you're welcome to it. The last thing that I want to talk about is to give you an update on my finger picking. I know that in my last video on habits, I had said that the finger picking habit is something that I've been working on really hard lately. And I have to tell you, I have failed miserably over the last few weeks. I have had to put band-aids over them to keep myself from grabbing at them. It's just been the worst it's been in a really long time. And I have to admit, I haven't been trying to implement the things that I said previously that I was going to try to implement. And so that's part of the reason I have noticed that I will notice myself picking and go, you shouldn't do that. You should recite your be still and know that I am God. And seriously, I say to myself, I really don't care right now. But I want to share with you a book that I'm reading right now. I didn't get this from anybody on YouTube. It's actually from my book club. And usually we read Christian books, but once in a while we read something that's not from a Christian author. And right now we're reading a book called Finish. It is by Jon Acuff. I don't know how to pronounce the last name. It's A-C-U-F-F, and John is J-O-N. I want to read you a clip from that book that relates to some of the habits that I have not succeeded in as of yet. The first chapter is about perfectionists and how that doesn't really help you to succeed and to finish something if you're being a perfectionist. He says, developing a tolerance for imperfection is the key factor in turning chronic starters into constant finishers. And I have to say that is something that I have struggled with, and I've said on this channel before, I have no problem starting projects. I start projects all the time. It's finishing them that I struggle with. And while I don't think I'm a perfectionist, I do think that repeated failures to do something does get me down. And when he talks about developing a tolerance for imperfection, it makes so much sense to me. And this was really inspiring, what he says here. Those are the doors we stand before in this book and in our lives. One is marked finished and leads to untold adventures, opportunities, and stories. One is marked perfectionism and leads to a solid brick wall of frustration, shame, and incomplete hopes. And he just really tries to stress that nothing is ever finished without failures along the way. And every failure that we encounter is only part of the path to finishing. And so I'm not going to get down on myself for the habits I've not succeeded at yet. I'm not going to get down on myself that my fingers are worse off this week than they were 2 weeks ago. I'm just going to go back. I'm going to take what I've learned from it. I'm going to see what I can add or take away. Evaluate what has been the roadblock for me for that. And soldier on. Just like you do with everything every day. I was talking to my brother yesterday on the phone about how difficult the year has been, and he is reading Hind's Feet on High Places to his daughters, not the original version, but a modified version for children. He reminded me that in that story, God gave her 2 helpers, pain and suffering. And she questioned God, why? Why are these my helpers? And he told her that this is how you get your hind's feet, and that you can eventually run with me on high places. Pain and suffering are helpers, they're tools, they're teachers, and an evidence that God is working in my life. And I know that in my head, and I often need to remind my heart. Today is a day I feel pretty good about it, and I hope you can too.